All right, I'm going to pause us there, as lovely as it is to have that lovely music in the background. I'm going to get started, and I am recording this session, so it will be made available afterwards as well if folks trickle in over the next few minutes. But my name is Jordan Ashwood, and I'm the Partnerships Manager at the Clinton Global Initiative University, and I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for your presence in being here to learn more about this exciting social innovation challenge. Myself and my colleagues at Verizon and at VentureWell, we're really excited to share with you some more information about this challenge, about the application process, about some exciting events we have coming up next week to help you prepare really compelling and strong applications, and for VentureWell to share with you what some of the summer opportunities will look like for the selected teams. And then additionally, after that, you'll be hearing from some of our folks at Verizon, and they'll be sharing some insight on really what do we mean by leading edge technology and how can it intersect with social impact. And then we'll have, particularly we'll be doing a focus on immersive education technology as well, and having a colleague from the Verizon side share a little bit about that. So there'll be time for questions at the end, but if you do have questions as we go through, please feel free to put them in the chat, and someone from one of our teams will be answering as we go, and we'll also leave time for questions at the end. And just so that to make it a little bit more interactive and for me to know like who's on the call, if you could just put your name in the chat and what your major is or what your concentration is at school, that would be wonderful. We could get to know each other a little bit. So with that, I'm going to move ahead into some introductions for the first part of this session. And I'll start with, I guess, my Verizon colleague, Katie. Would you like to go?
Sure. Hi, thanks, Jordan, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I work at Verizon, as Jordan said, in social innovation, which means that my job is really about focusing on how we can develop and deploy technologies that have an impact on social and environmental issues, a positive impact on social and environmental issues.
Wonderful. And then my colleagues from VentureWell, feel free to introduce yourselves.
Great. Hi, I'm Kara Barnes. I'm a program officer with VentureWell. And at VentureWell, we are on a mission to cultivate a pipeline of inventors, innovators, and entrepreneurs who are driven to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. And we are the accelerator partner in this program. So we'll be talking a little bit later about the programming this summer, but very excited to meet you all today.
My name is Candle Hedrick. Good to see everyone. I'm also program officer at VentureWell. And so I'm just happy to be working with this program and glad to see a lot of students on the call this afternoon. So welcome.
Yeah, and I'm Christina Tamer. I work closely with Kara and Candle and excited to work with some of you this summer on the program.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll pass the baton to you, Katie, to talk a little bit about the partnership overall.
Are you sharing slides, Jordan? Because I'm not seeing them.
Yes, I am.
Is everybody else seeing them?
I see them.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we're really excited to launch this partnership with the Clinton Global Initiative at the end of last year. And really what we're trying to drive here is two main objectives. One, at Verizon, we really feel that technology has an important role to play in helping to address big social and environmental issues. And so we're excited about, inspiring young talent like yourselves to think about ways to do that, to harness the power of technology towards some of these big issues. And as part of that, it's really important to us to be building a diverse community of young innovators. So diversifying the voices in the conversation, the types of ideas that are coming into the system. And so that's what we're hoping to achieve with this challenge and why we're talking to you today. And this initiative is part of what we call Citizen Verizon, which is really our responsible business plan to help advance economic, environmental, and social issues. If you go to the next slide, I'm going to be very brief here because we only have a short time and I want to get to the more substantive conversation, but Jordan will follow up with a lot more information and a lot more detail about the challenge and these three issue areas that we're focused on. My colleague Phil is going to talk shortly more about immersive education technology, so I won't go into that now. Climate justice is really all about how do we help to ensure that the impacts of climate change do not disproportionately impact vulnerable populations, or I should say, there is a lot of data that shows the impacts of climate change do disproportionately impact vulnerable populations, and how do we help to address that issue? And then the last piece is health equity. So how do we leverage technology to help increase access to healthcare, to health information, and to do so in an inclusive way? So there's a lot more information about all three of these topic areas in the materials that we'll send you, but that's just a flavor of the issue areas that we are hoping you'll explore.
Thank you, Katie. So I'm going to go a little bit into the details about the application. So this challenge is open to all current undergraduate students and current graduate students. It's also open to any CGI U alumni. So if you are an alumni of the CGI U program, you're also eligible to apply. We are encouraging students to sign up in teams of 2 to 3. Students do not have to be from the same institution. You don't have to both be graduate students. It can be a mix in that sense. And I think in general, we think that teams that have complementary skills, if one person is more techie, one person is really business oriented on the social impact side, we would love to see teams come together that have diverse interests in that sense. In terms of what the application includes, so it's 2 pieces. One is a video, a short 3-minute video, and really that's just an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit more, and why you're particularly passionate about the issue area that you chose, whether it's climate justice, health equity, immersive education. And then the second piece is a series of just sort of short answers where we would love to get a sense of where you're at in terms of the problem that you've chosen to address, how you think your solution might be different from other solutions that have been tried thus far, and what you think the potential is for your idea to grow, to scale, and the impact that you expect it will have on the population that you've chosen. So I do want to emphasize that you can be at any point in sort of your ideation. So if you have an idea and you're like, I think this could work, I think this might address a need, or I think there's a gap, then we want to hear from you. And so feel free to apply, even if you're just at that initial concept stage. If you've thought through it a little bit more, you've done a little bit of market research, we also still want to hear from you. And really the purpose of the summer programming with VentureWell, if you're a final selected team, will be to help you develop and scale that idea. So the application deadline is April 1st. So a little less than a month. And next week we are having a design sprint. And so what I mean by that, because that's kind of a random term, but what I mean by that is really it's a week of virtual panels and coaching sessions to help interested applicants put together really strong applications. And so for the first half of the week, we'll have panels on each of those 3 issue areas. We'll have panels on leading edge technology. What do we mean by social innovation? And then we'll have office hours the second half of the week. And so you can just tune into a Zoom, ask a question to a staff member, an expert at any one of our organizations, and we'll be happy to answer. So following this call, I will send you all information on how to register for the design sprint next week, as well as information on the challenge as a whole. I'm going to move ahead and just do a quick sort of overview of, for top finalist selected teams, as we've been mentioning, teams will receive an exclusive spot in a summer program with VentureWell. And so they're about to share sort of what that will look like at a bit of a high level. But each team will also approximately receive $20,000 per team. And that $20,000 includes some seed funding, but it also includes living stipends for each of the team members themselves. And then throughout the year, you'll have access to other networking and mentorship opportunities. And it will all culminate in September, where those top teams will present their pitches that they've been working on throughout the summer. And the top 3 teams from that showcase will receive additional resources and the opportunity to continue on working with VentureWell. So really exciting opportunities for teams that are selected, and we really encourage anyone who's interested, no matter what stage you're at, to apply with an idea, and especially to come to the design sprint next week, just because there will be a lot of helpful resources that we're able to share during that. So I will pause there. I know that's a lot of information, a lot of me speaking, and if we have any questions, I can answer them at this point. If you have a question, you can feel free to put it into the chat, or you can turn on your mic and your video and ask me directly.
Question. A lot of our students are single founders right now. Will they need a team? Is that a requirement?
Great question. Yes, so they will need a team of at least 2 people, so at least one other person. And that's actually a great question because I didn't share that piece. So we have a Slack channel that we've created for this challenge as well. And so any interested student who would like to connect with other interested applicants and potentially find a team member, all they have to do is send me their name and email address, and I will add them to that Slack channel. And we've been seeing students join throughout the past week looking for team members.
And on that note, like, does a team member have to be like, okay, like a full co-founder? Is that a requirement, or is it somebody that they could bring on maybe in like a part-time? I'm just curious because, you know, it's always a big thing for a student who may have been working on an idea for a year by themselves and it's pretty good. And now they kind of being asked to have a teammate. So like, what are the stipulations of that relationship? I guess is that something that you'll talk about more going forward?
No, I can talk about that now. So, I mean, really, we would love for the 2 team members to both, I think the most important thing is we would want both team members to be able to contribute something to the ultimate application and to also be both active participants in the Venture Well Summer Programming if they were to be selected as a finalist team. So I think that's what I would say about that.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, I'm going to pass it off to my colleagues at VentureWell now, so I will stop sharing. And Kara, when you're ready, feel free to go ahead.
All right, can you see my screen? Great.
Yes.
All right, so as Jordan said, at VentureWell, we are the accelerator partner for the Social Innovation Challenge. And like I mentioned at the top of the call, you know, we're really here to support innovators, their ventures, and the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems that are really critical to their success. And we've been doing this work for 25 years now. And our flagship program is the E-Team program, which stands for Entrepreneurial Team. And it's a program that provides both grant funding and training to science and technology innovators. So, you know, as teams come through this program, they take part in trainings and workshops that teach the lean startup method. So we help innovators fail fast and develop their business models using evidence-based approaches, so that, you know, they're making informed decisions as they move their strategies forward. And so it's really our trainings are to help teams build a business model around the innovation that they've developed to help them get that innovation out of the lab and out of the ideation stage and into the market where it can ultimately have that impact. So over the 25 years that we've been doing this work, we've had a bit of an extensive impact. We've awarded over $10 million in grant funding to over 700 teams across over 140 universities. Those teams have gone on to form almost 400 ventures who have then raised over $400 million. And I'll talk a little bit momentarily about the investments that VentureWell has made, but we've invested in 23 of those teams. And all of that has had an individual impact of, we've worked one-on-one with over 1,000 individuals. So we've been doing this work for a while, and our program is a tried and true tested model. So we're really excited to potentially be working with you this summer in this program. So the E-Team program is a 3-staged approach. The first stage is $5,000 in grant funding and a 1-week workshop called Pioneer that helps innovators identify the right market for their innovation. So it's all about market discovery. Teams that are successful in stage 1 then go on to stage 2, which is a $20,000 grant and a workshop called Propel, and a 3-month coaching period. And that's the focus of that is to develop and validate your business model. So really getting out and talking to customers and learning from them what their needs are and how you can meet those needs. And the final stage of the program is called Aspire, which stands for Accelerating Startup Partnership and Investment Readiness. And that is for teams and companies that are getting ready to raise their first round of sophisticated investment. So we help those companies develop their deal room and get ready for due diligence. And in some cases, VentureWell has a small fund that we invest in companies with. So for the, figure out how to advance my slide, here we go. So for the Social Innovation Challenge, this program will be the first stage of our E-Team program. So it'll be a $5,000 grant plus living expenses for up to 3 team members. And it'll run over the course of June, July, and August. So the first few weeks in June will be onboarding, orientation, intro calls with VentureWell staff, pre-work assignments, all of which will help you get up to speed and level set, and will help us get up to speed and level set on what you're working on, so that we can jump into a 1-week virtual workshop, tentatively June 1st to 24th. And really the goal of that workshop is to help you identify product market fit and really refine your work plan to set you up for the rest of the summer. That workshop will consist of lectures from instructors, breakout groups where you will get individualized feedback from your peers and from facilitators and instructors, and then individual teamwork where you'll work one-on-one, within your team to develop that strategy. And then the final phase of the program, really the bulk of the summer, is the coaching period, which will be through July and August, and that will be bi-weekly calls with VentureWell staff to check in on your work plan and the milestones that you're aiming to hit, coaching to help you help guide your strategy in the customer discovery interviews that you're doing, office hours with expert mentors from the CGI U, Verizon, and VentureWell networks, and then additional webinars and learning sessions. And as Jordan mentioned, all of this will culminate in that pitch event in September, where the winners will go on into further VentureWell programming. So I will pause there in the interest of time and see if there were any questions.
There are a couple questions in the chat that I don't know if we want to answer them live or offline. Jordan, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, I was just answering one in the chat and typing, but then realized I might be needed to speak on screen. So one question that came in is in regard to the number of team members. So the number of team members does have to be 2 to 3. And so that is a result of, the amount of stipend money that we have available for up to 3 team members, but also in terms of when you're applying, there's space to provide information for 3 team members. So I would keep that in mind as you're constructing your teams, and, it might make sense to split up into 2 groups and consider 2 different projects, but we will accept teams between 2 and 3. So I hope that clarifies that piece. And in terms of receiving a copy of the presentation slides, I can check with my colleagues at VentureWell and Verizon to make sure that they're okay with that. But I think that should be just fine. And I'll also be following up with additional information about the design sprint and about the challenge as well. So you'll have all the information you need.
And then the one other question I see is about a team that's working out of a university in Japan. I think, Christina, this might be a question for you, or Jordan, maybe I think we can, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, so I can answer this. So you can be from any institution, higher ed institution in the world. We just ask that as you're considering a solution for your application, that either it's focused on an issue in the US or it could be replicated within a US context. But you can be from an international institution. That's completely fine, and we welcome that.
I'll just add the program timing would be primarily on US time, since that's where we expect the body, most of the applicants to be from. So if you're okay taking the course in the middle of the night, it's okay with us.
And then I thought I saw one other question. So you're, well, I see a couple questions. So teammates, do they have to be in college? So your teammates can be undergraduate students, your teammates can be graduate students, or they could be CGI U alumni. So each team can have a mix of those 3 different options. And then there's another question about how can you check if your team startup falls under immersive education. So I would encourage you, and again, this will be in the information I send you as a follow-up, but we have a whole website dedicated to the challenge. And there are the 3 prompts for each of those 3 issue areas on the page as well. So I would encourage you to read through that immersive education prompt. We have a specific question. We have some different thoughts to consider within that, very broad topic. So I would use that prompt as a guideline to see if you feel like, your startup might be a good fit.
And maybe just to plug the design sprint next week, there's also an office hours session on immersive education. So if you wanted to come sort of hear more about what falls into that bucket, or if you have questions, there's an opportunity to do that then as well.
And also, because we have an expert on said topic from the Verizon team speaking today, I think also today's session will give some more clarity on that as well. All right, I think I've answered all the questions so far. I'll do a double check, but I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague, Josh. Take it away.
Oh, yeah. All right. How's everybody doing? Feel free to pop there in the chat. This is the interactive portion. We're going to rock and roll here for the next 15, 20 minutes. Christina is very excited. Is anyone else really excited? It is almost Friday. I'm excited about that. Anybody else?
Excited over here.
All right. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
I'm definitely excited.
What's that?
I'm definitely excited too.
That is, yes. All right. I like this crew.
Fellow Jordan. I love that. Fellow female Jordan.
Oh, nice.
Great name.
It's not the last Jordan that's going to get referenced in this presentation. Welcome. My name is Josh. I'm with Verizon 5G Labs. I'm here to talk to you today about 5G and leading edge technologies. And I promise I'm not going to read off my slides for the rest of the presentation. My role at Verizon alongside Katie is to predict the future. Quite literally, my job is to predict the future and then create concepts and prototypes and ideas about what that future is going to look like and see how we can all get there together. If at any point you have questions or want to throw out a comment or a hell yeah from what I'm talking about, go ahead and throw that in the chat. I got that pulled up too. I'm going to keep an eye on that, and I'll be sure to answer your questions as I go. So we're going to talk real quick about 5G and some of the leading edge technologies that I'd like you to be considering as you are crafting your as you are crafting your submissions to the prompts that Jordan and the VentureWell team had outlined right there. Okay, so we are Verizon. We are a connectivity company. We provide that layer of connectivity that connects devices, people, ideas, right? Pretty much everything that we live our lives on right now runs off wireless, right? Our TVs are connected wirelessly, our computers are connected wirelessly, our phones are connected wirelessly. Pretty much everything is, and they all run on connectivity, right? Sometimes it's Wi-Fi, a lot of times it's cellular. We think more and more it's going to lean towards cellular as 5G becomes more ubiquitous and takes and has a larger role in bringing together the massive amounts of IoT, Internet of Things devices that we are going to be producing as a society. So what is 5G? 5G, plainly put, is the 5th generation of wireless connectivity. There were, count them, 4 generations before this one, and it all started with that Zach Morris phone there on the left-hand side. If you know why it's called a Zach Morris phone, please put that in the chat. I'd really like to know how well that show dates itself. But it made phone calls, right? That's pretty much all you could do is make phone calls with it. And most of the time they weren't even that good at phone calls because the coverage probably wasn't that good. And so then we had, to much fanfare, 2G. Just kidding. No one knew about 2G. No one really knew anything except all of a sudden their Motorola Razr could text and it could take a selfie and you could send it to somebody. And really no one knows why it's called a Zach Morris phone? Come on, y'all. And so that's really what 2G was. It was texting and it was the very beginnings of data. Then you started, we released as a carrier industry 3G. And 3G also, not really much fanfare. No one really knew what it was, except that now you had a BlackBerry device that could handle things like emailing and calendaring, and that was pretty much it. There we go. Yeah, Eric and Anthony rolling in there in the chat. Saved by the Bell, exactly. One of the best shows on television back in the day. And so we have these BlackBerries, and they had these physical keyboards. If you had a BlackBerry, go ahead and raise your hand, put it in the chat. It could do wireless syncing of email and calendar, and that was revolutionary at that point. And it's because even the Palms back in the day, you had to sync them to your computer in order to download and upload those messages. Yeah, I had a guy with BlackBerry too, Kendall. And so then a really important thing happened in California. This guy right here, if you know who he is, put it in the chat. He stood up on stage in California, and he held up this device, and he said, "It's an iPod that you can make phone calls with." And everyone went crazy, right? Because no one had ever seen anything like that before. And it was a device that could play your music. It could you had all the functionality of a cell phone, and it put these two things together. And at that point, in 2007, when that came out, it was revolutionary. But the phone itself was even more revolutionary than people thought it was. It was the supercomputer that could fit in your pocket, right? And its capabilities weren't even really that well realized until 4G was released in 2010. And up until that point, when the iPhone had been out for 3 years, the most innovative app that anyone had on their iPhone or on their smartphone was this app. If you know what this app is, put it in the chat. This is an app that lets you play Scrabble with anyone around the world at the same time. You can live chat with them. You can play game. You can play Scrabble, and you can have several games going at the same time. All of this done wirelessly. And that was actually kind of innovative at the time. And really nobody used to play this game. Sometimes I still play this game. And so this was it until around 2010 when 4G hit the scene. And when 4G hit the scene, no one knows, this is Words with Friends. Words with Friends was a really popular app in 2008, 2009, 2010. Yeah, so some folks still play it today. When 4G hit the scene, basically Scrabble. When 4G hit the scene, we went from Words with Friends to this kind of an ecosystem, people being able to do all of these things on their phones at the same time. And so what happened was when 4G was released, people thought it was going to be, it was going to usher in the era of streaming video. Little did they know it was going to usher in the era of Uber, of Amazon, of Facebook, of all of these different applications, being able to, you can take your phone and you can spin up a virtual server in a cloud farm somewhere, and you can start a cloud-based business before we even get off this webinar. That's the power of 4G and the fact that you can do all of these things reliably and securely from just a handheld device like a cell phone. That is not something that anyone anticipated. And so we know that 4G created all of this new value, and we know that 5G is going to do the exact same thing. The issue, the same issue that we had in 2010 is we don't necessarily know what that value is going to be. And so this is a slide that helps to iterate how much faster it is than 4G. 5G is magnitude times faster than 4G. I think just this week, Samsung released the results of a test that said they hit 5 gigabits per second on a wireless 5G connection. To put that in perspective, most 4G connections are about 40 megabits a second, right? From 40 megabits a second to 5 gigabits a second is huge. That is nothing to laugh at. And so we know that is going to bring in so many new types of technologies that we don't necessarily know what they are. It is going to bring in what we're calling the fourth industrial revolution. When I say we, I mean like society at large. This is something that's talked about at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Like everyone knows this fourth industrial revolution is coming. Eric is right, going to change the game for IoT and physical computing makers, 100%. It's going to create this merger of physical and digital. So I almost said phygital, which is a word that gets used that I really dislike. Please don't use the word. And so much in the same way that the loom revolutionized cloth making, and the way that the conveyor belt revolutionized the assembly line, and the way that the first programmable logic machine created what ended up being computers, we know that 5G is going to create a connectivity revolution that is going to usher in this new state of this physical digital symbiosis, right? That's a fun word. And so these are some of the capabilities of 5G. These are some of the what we call currencies, some of the areas where we know 5G is going to vastly outperform 4G. And one of the reasons why I really like this slide is it gives you a really great idea of some of the areas that you should be thinking about as technology is going to advance, as technology capabilities are going to increase, and as the types of people who use those technologies are going to realize value, right? So we know that it's going to impact things like drones and autonomous guided vehicles down there. You can see it at the bottom. Autonomous driving, you can see that on the right. And gaming, people like to talk a lot about gaming. It's in the zeitgeist right now because it's something that we can touch and feel right now. We can see the inherent benefits of things like 5G in the gaming space, which is exciting. Some of my favorites there are on the left. IoT sensors. If you don't know what IoT sensors are, it's Internet of Things. It's basically the stuff that's connected to the internet that didn't used to be. Things like smart light bulbs, things like smart speakers, things like smart refrigerators, right? That can tell you when you're low on milk, which is crazy. This is what we call IoT, and usually they're using very low bandwidth, right? They're not using very much bandwidth at all because they're sensing things like temperature, they're looking for voice signatures, they're calculating pressure and things like that. With 5G, it's going to, the nature of IoT devices are vastly going to change. We're going to start seeing computer vision IoT devices that are able to read a situation that's happening in front of a very cheap camera, transmit a lot of data back wirelessly, have that data get processed by something like an AI, and then allow people to make better decisions based on that. Connected wearables. Right now, the new Apple Watch has a model that can connect wirelessly into a cellular connection without having to rely on the hub device, which is the phone. That's going to be the future. Imagine your smart speaker right now, which can play music, it can tell you what the temperature is outside. Those are basically the only two things I use mine for. Imagine having like a Jarvis style assistant in your home that can read your email to you and can tell you lots of things about what's happening in the world that actually is there interacting with you. 5G and things like distributed artificial intelligence are going to make that possible in real time, which is exciting. And then you'll be able to take that on the go. If you've ever seen the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, the voice of Scarlett Johansson, that movie got a lot right. And so web connected jewelry, that's exactly right. That's been around for a little while now. It blinks a certain type of color depending on what kind of messages you have. This is my favorite slide, really. This is my boy Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy, and they're using some very future-forward types of technologies. It's a tablet that he's there writing on, and Gene Roddenberry, who came up with Star Trek, had this idea for what the future was going to look like. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I don't want you to fall into the same trap that Gene did. When I say that, I mean this. He had the idea that we would have these wireless tablets that could be connected, that could be taken pretty much anywhere. He was right. We all have them today. What he didn't really understand, though, was that the nature of how we processed information was going to change along with the form factor of that device. If you like Star Trek as much as I do, then you know that on that tablet that he's writing on right there are a bunch of dials and switches and gauges and things like that. Not nearly anything like the digital readouts that we have right now. Not nearly anything like the flat screen that responds to electromagnetic sensing from your finger, right? And you can even see those little green bubbles on his chair right there. Those are lights, right? That's what the representation was of lights, so that the captain could get information about his ship via that little light panel on his chair. And you can see those are glass bulbs. And yes, it would have been very future forward to think about these technologies in the 1960s when the show was made. But there was this, right? There was this failure to grasp how the nature of those user interfaces was going to change at the time. And I bring this up because we still fall into the same conundrum here. We can only think about future forward types of technology in the box of what technology exists today. And so what I want you to be doing as you are thinking about how your concept ideas are going to scale, I want you to be thinking about how they could potentially scale as technology continues to evolve, right? And so 5G comes in a couple of flavors. I'm going to burn through these pretty quickly. And if you want to know more, you can reach out to the team and they'll make sure that we get in touch. One of the ways that 5G is going to make a huge impact is what's called fixed wireless access. What that means is we can beam 5G, 5 gigabit connectivity and higher into homes and businesses through the window, right? No longer do we have to run expensive cables or fiber optics into a business or a home or into a structure. We can just beam high-speed internet inside so that all of the people inside can be taking advantage of connected devices and services, right? Or if we've all been working from home or going to school from home, we've probably been in this situation where everyone's on the internet and it really saps it out for everybody else, right? No one is able to really do anything that they want to do at the peak capability because there's just too many people using it. Well, 5G home or 5G fixed wireless access solves this problem. And the other type of 5G is 5G to your mobile devices, to your phones that we all have in our pockets right now, right? It's the ability for the phone to do new and exciting things. And in a variety of I moved that slide, that's right. In a variety of different ways, and it will allow a lot of mobile devices in these types of industries to have a greater type of an impact. So how are we putting this to work now? Here are some things that I want you to think about as ways that we're already beginning to apply this technology that you can too. The way that content is created is changing, and if you've done content creation, especially digital content creation, this might even look familiar to you. It's having all of these massive amounts of servers that have to hold all of this data, and in order to move this data around can get very expensive and very time consuming, and it can cost a lot of money too. Well, now we can create this stuff digitally on the fly through technologies like motion capture, which is what this is, and then increasingly volumetric capture, which can take a 3D object and digitize it into a digital version of itself, a 3D digital asset that can be used in augmented reality, in virtual reality, and in holograms, right? That's kind of cool. And 5G allows for this data to move seamlessly back and forth at very, very high rates and very high volumes so that these things become real time and that these content creators can then interact digitally with their audiences. This is a slide I was looking at before that's going to show that gives us an idea of what phones are going to be able to do, which sometimes they're already able to do. On the left there, you see that volumetric capture that I was talking about. It's a 3D representation of the greatest basketball player to ever lived. There's your Jordan reference. And then in the middle there, that expanded digital world, that idea that you can open up a portal into an entirely new world, very much like Dr. Strange does. And this can be experienced on your mobile device. And then on the right there, you have these dynamic, high fidelity avatars that go way beyond the stuff that you get from Instagram and Snapchat and things like that, which are not streaming at all, by the way. Those are pre-downloaded assets, because right now we don't have the capability, those masks that you see them wearing, we can't even really stream those things on 4G. The limitations of 4G, we sometimes get around them by pre-downloading things in the background so that it looks like something is streaming when actually it's not. Well, with 5G, you can actually stream that. And so up to the point of this, which I think is a great example of somebody who's just walking through a park, realizes that the Liverpool-Chelsea match was just on, and is able to put on these VR glasses and be right there on the field, because there are cameras placed in and around the field that are synced specifically for VR that let a person be able to move around and walk around and turn their head to look like they're exactly right there on the action. And being able to see these things as they happen in real time. I won't tell you the result of the match that I just saw who won, but it was a good one. And so this type of technology, while it seems fantastical, is kind of already possible. The hardware makers and the experience creators haven't quite put everything together yet to make this accessible to everybody, but it's here and we can already do versions of this. And this is where we're doing it. The 5G lab that I work at, that most of my colleagues have been to visit us at, we have these labs all over the country, as well as in some parts of Europe. Our job is to work with people just like you, people who have really interesting ideas about how emerging technology is going to change the world. And sometimes that takes the form of academia, like we're talking right now, through NGOs like the Clinton Foundation, as well as through startups and enterprises and larger scale customers. Yeah, there is a lab in Atlanta. That's right. We just opened that up a little bit ago. And so we take those, we want to work with people that have interesting ideas, and we run things like use case trials. We have events where we really dive into topics and explore where technology can have an impact. And then we run programs just like this, these innovation challenges, where we provide those tools like access to 5G, like access to edge computing. And if you're not familiar with edge computing, highly recommend you look that up. It's one of the core technologies that 5G is really going to bring to life that is going to change everything. You can bet money on it. And so this, we've had examples of how we've done this. And here I'm going to turn it over to my my good friend Phil Putamana here in just a second, because he has helped me run programs just like this. We've done this with first responder technology in Washington, D.C. We've done this with advanced robotics technologies in Boston, as well as we just had a mobile game that uses 5G and allows 30,000 fans at the Super Bowl to engage in a game all at the same time, which would make a normal game developer's head explode if we told them that they had to build a mobile game that would do that. On 5G, you can definitely do that. One of my favorite programs that we ever ran was the 5G Ed Tech Challenge, where we asked a very important question, and we got some really great responses and answers that are impacting the lives of kids today. So that's the end of my particular talk right here on 5G and leading edge technologies. I hope this gave you a little bit of inspiration. Basically, to borrow a line from Terminator, the future isn't written yet. 5G is going to change everything, just the same way that these entrepreneurs and technologists from 10 years ago created new applications and services and companies and industries and entire economies like the gig economy. That's happening again. And it's people like you, people like you who are going to have the ideas, the new ideas that are going to take the existing technology, supercharge it with things like 5G, and create brand new things. So with that, if you want to get in touch with me, get in touch with the folks who set up this program. They'll make sure that we get put together, and be happy and excited to talk with you through our design sprint coming up next week. Be sure you sign up for that. Anyway, this EdTech Challenge, I'm getting excited just thinking about it. Phil, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more?
Okay, great, Josh. Thanks for handing over the baton to me. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the time everybody's taking to listen to us. So I know all of you are excited about this opportunity, and we're really excited to have you as part of it. When we look at immersive education, it's a lot of what Josh was talking about, right? So as we think about 5G and the capabilities that 5G has, what's possible there? So we had a challenge that started, it was about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago, where we actually had nonprofits and universities apply to our challenge. And we actually picked, a number of them around the country, and we focused on the top 10, and now we're helping the top 5 scale out, and they're actually in our schools. At the end, depending on our time, I can play the video. Otherwise, I'll make sure that the video goes out to you and you can check it out. But let me share a little bit about this, some of the applications. So let me know if you can see that. I think you can. Yeah, I can see it myself. So the way it works is, when you think of our EdTech solutions and what's in our schools today, this is the school, right? So this is actually an example of, no, actually, is it moving? Can you guys see the slides moving, or is it stuck?
It's stuck on the end.
Yeah, it just looks like a static room right now.
Okay. Yeah. I'm having some internet issues in my house, so let's see if it's a little better now. Can you guys
Need to get you on that 5G.
I know, right? Let's see here. All right, stuck. Give me a second. Oh, okay. Let's see. How about now? Can you see that changing?
Just says 5G EdTech Challenge Solutions.
Oh, it's still stuck there. Okay. Give me a second. Sorry about this. Worst comes to worst, I'll send you the deck and I'll talk through them, but I think I should be able to get this working. Give me a second. All right. How about now? Any luck? Can you see the second slide I was trying to show? Do you see this lab?
We only see the small photos on the side, like we can see the outline of the slides.
How about now? Any better?
When you're clicking share screen, are you sharing whole screen or are you sharing just maybe the one app?
Just trying to share the whole screen. But
Now we see the lab.
Now I see the lab. You want to just go through the slides like that and click on each one on the side, that should work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you can see that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry about this, but you know that's tech and that's how it goes. So that's a good lesson for all of you. Right? You can be prepared for these things. They don't always go the way you want. But so in any case, this is one of our labs in our schools, and this is where a lot of the magic happens for the kids, right? So we actually put in a lot of technology in our space where this used to be a library. We transformed it, and we put things like 3D printers and a virtual reality studio, and you name it, and gave kids the opportunity to kind of play with it. These are some of the applications. Can you see visceral science in front of you right now?
Yeah, I think the visceral science, grasping the universe.
Yeah, can you see that? Okay, great.
Yep.
So this is one of the top winners of the EdTech Challenge. So visceral science was all around, imagine you're in this space in virtual reality with your students, and you actually can teach them about interplanetary science with all of them being able to manipulate stars and planets. And you can actually form a star right from this. So this is an example of a virtual reality solution that was a winner of our challenge. It doesn't mean you have to build something at this level, but it means dream big on what's possible in education. And that's kind of the solutions we're looking for. I'll show you the next one. The next one is 5G Covet. And what this was really was an escape room. Sorry. It was an escape room that allowed students to be in virtual reality and be with their teacher and actually be able to solve clues to get out of that escape room. And again, this is possible through 5G, based on the collaboration that the students could do. The next one is looking inside cells. And what this is about is, imagine if you actually were with your fellow students and you actually could create a cell from scratch in virtual reality. And we actually started with this in mixed reality. We realized that that was not the best form factor, and so now they're converting it over to virtual reality. The next one, and I'm going through these quick because we lost a few minutes, but Unsung is a really great example of augmented reality. So this is where we're actually highlighting narratives of underrepresented musicians. So Odetta Holmes is a great example. She's one of the 5 musicians that they've highlighted in the app. And you can actually go in augmented reality and you can follow Odetta through the March on Washington. You can follow her at Carnegie Hall. You can actually experience a lot of what she was kind of able to do. And it's almost as if you're there in augmented reality. And actually, this is an escape room as well, where kids are following a workbook and actually are following Odetta Holmes' story, and you're actually solving clues in the escape room to escape out of the room. And again, this is a multiplayer AR application. So again, just think about the applications of technology. The technology is great, right? But if teachers if they can't use it in their classroom, then it's pretty much dead on arrival. So think about it from a lot of your vantage points on things that you're seeing, maybe in your own areas of expertise, of things that could be done with AR and VR in the classroom. This is the next one, Mapper's Delight. So Mapper's Delight is a application where the folks that made this actually use augmented reality. They started with virtual reality and they use augmented reality, and you actually get to see this globe pop up right in front of you, right? And actually you can pick points on the globe that have geographical references. So for instance, the the school, one song might talk about Hong Kong, another might talk about London, and you'll see actually an arc that goes from one city to the next, and you can actually hear those references in those songs. And so what's nice is, imagine if we're all in this together using iPads together, you actually can experience what I'm listening to, I can experience what you're listening to, and then teachers can kind of take that and actually go teach students with that based on whatever class it might be using, English language arts, or history or social studies, etc. Another example is something we built that wasn't part of the EdTech Challenge. It's really a hologram. It's everything Josh was talking about, what's possible with 5G. And actually what's amazing is we were actually really lucky that we got to work with Serena on this, but you can actually put Serena in your living room and you can actually have an interactive conversation with her. So I can actually ask her questions and she's going to respond accordingly. And we went and we focused on her entrepreneurship rather than her tennis. But we actually have an engineer from Verizon, an engineer from Google who worked on Google Assistant, and we have an animator from Pixar who's now at Netflix, that are some of the characters that were actually able to interact with it. So this is actually the future, and it's here today, and it's coming. And this is just another great example of, how can we introduce kids to things that they may not see in their day-to-day life, but you can actually see in this. And I apologize if you're in the chat, but with all my tech issues, I don't want to mess with this presentation right now, but I'll be done in a second. So Aurelia is another last example I want to just highlight. And what this is, we built it with the same team. And again, what's exciting is you could have 30 students in this experience at the same time. And what happens is, let's say Eric's my teacher, he gives me the inputs, and you're looking at fresh water as an example. We all make a fish, we release it into the water at the same time. And you can see that Josh's fish succeeds, he gets an A, my fish dies, and I have to figure out what I did wrong. Now this all takes us, finally, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. The goal is this year, we're actually gonna be putting out a platform. And that's where a lot of what you guys build and your innovations, if they're selected as the winning innovations, they could actually go onto this platform. And so, let's see if I have any luck with this, but basically the goal is, in the next 10 years, we want to do exclusive VR and AR material that we're going to be able to put out into the market. And it's really focused on teachers. So 2021 is really around teachers. We want to give as much resources to teachers that when we get into that hybrid learning, hopefully in the fall where our schools open up, they can actually use some of these tools in the classroom. Let's see if you can see this. I don't have any luck. Can you guys see that video that's working? Eric, you're the only screen I see on my screen, so let me know.
Oh, yeah, looks good to me. I'm seeing the YouTube video play right now. It's
okay, great.
It's a little choppy, but I'm seeing it.
Okay, so this is just a highlight of, this is an overview of what the site's going to look like. So imagine whatever you guys create, you win, you get your application chosen, it gets to sit on this platform, and thousands of teachers from around the country get to see it. And so that's kind of the end result of what we want to do, is whatever inspirations and innovations come out, they can actually go onto this platform eventually, and teachers can actually take a look at it. And finally, this is kind of the launch plan of that. But again, we only have a few minutes left, so I don't want to take more time. But that's kind of what we're trying to go for with education. And immersive education, it really is everything you're thinking about. If you use Pokemon Go on your AR, on your phone, if you've ever done augmented reality in your house, those are the kind of things we want to bring them to life to kids. So just to make education more engaging. So with that, let me just pause and see if there's any questions on that. And we're going to have a design sprint next week. I'll try to get my tech fixed by then, but there'll be more answers I can provide at that point.
Thank you so much, Phil, for presenting. Any questions for Phil on immersive education technology? Any other remaining questions about the challenge, about the application, or the design sprint next week that I can answer at the moment?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
I can, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so in terms of, is there any limitations that, for the immersive education that we have that would maybe contribute to someone not doing a certain project, or like what are the limitations? I guess that's my biggest question.
The limitations for the education technology specific area.
Yes, ma'am.
Phil, any
I
thoughts?
mean, I actually don't want to constrain your ideas right now, right? I think the constraints will naturally happen with tech, right? So even if I dreamed up I can do X, Y, and Z, when I get to make it, the reality is it probably is not possible, right? Everything's not possible. But I would say dream big and imagine what's possible. And then, you know, if your idea gets chosen, we'll kind of help you craft how it could be done, you know, because constraints are natural. So don't let your don't let anything limit your thinking, right? Keep it blue sky and see what's possible.
Okay, so is it possible to get the presentation that you just presented to like just use it for like, I guess, innovation or inspiration or something?
Yeah, I'll get it to the team so that they can get it to you guys along with the video so that you can see some of those applications in the live.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, just responding to some questions in the chat as well. We'll be sending out information about the design sprint. Also, the recording of this session will be available probably by tomorrow on YouTube, but I'll also be sending the link to you all directly so you have it and can share it with those who weren't able to make it. And then yes, I can get the slides for you as well, and we'll make those available. Any other questions? All right, well, I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
One quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know there were some students who were messaging me here in the chat privately. What's the best way for students to get in touch with y'all? Should they just email you directly if they have questions or want to know more about these things? Just all the people who presented, should they just reach out to y'all individually?
So I think probably what the best thing to do is to email probably me first, and then depending on the question, I can get the question to the appropriate person. So I'm gonna put my email into the chat box now. You'll also receive an email from me, but here it is, jashwood@clintonfoundation.org. So feel free to email me with any questions that come up, and I will get them to the right people and get you connected.
I have another question. So if you were accepted into this, I think it was the CGI and initiative or program, are you still allowed to compete in this?
Yes, yes, good question. So if you were selected into the CGIU cohort for this year, you absolutely, we encourage you to apply for this challenge as well, because it's a separate funding opportunity. And if you were, you know, a CGIU alum from a previous year, again, you're also eligible to apply.
Got you. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm going to encourage students to reach out to y'all as well. I think it's definitely make these connections, great connections to make here.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank
much. We look forward to it. Any other questions before we sign off? All right, well, thank you all again for being here. Thank you for your presence, your enthusiasm and energy. And again, if you're able to make the design sprint next week, we will have so many resources and folks that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of. So we encourage you to register for that, and we hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night. Bye.